welcome to another edition of Spoken Voices. We hope everyone is fine. As we always say when we start a show, we hope that everyone is doing everything that they can to take care of themselves in this cold weather. I have my producer with me once again, and we're recording from the house.
Yes, our production little.
So, what do you want to talk about today?
Yeah, let's talk about parenting, or how we as parents can, affect our kids, how we can, trickle down our behavior, how we speak, and how we carry along with one another in the family.
Right.
Because I want to really talk about, I think what I said before was how important it is not to favor one child. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some of us who we favor one kid than the other, and I say that because my son recently, he just said, Mom, I think that you favor him better than me. And so when he said that to me, I had to pause. And then I have to go back and say, wow, why is my baby telling me that? I mean, he's not a baby, he's a grown man. But
Baby.
And then I had to think and say, okay, let's talk about it, and we talked about it. And he was like, Mom, you're a good mom, but still, Mom, I think you did better than the other one. And I said, no, because I treat them all equally and I take good care of them all equally. Now, that's the kind of attitude that I had. And I said to myself, you know what, that's not a good thing to say to your son. I think it's so important to just listen, listen to them and not feel like you're hurt or feel like you're being disrespected when you have, thank you God, that you have that relationship and you can communicate with your son, and your son or daughter is telling you this. Why would you feel offended or get upset? And I think that that's important, because sometimes when we get upset and we feel offended, I know I felt like that, and that was because of the way I was raised, and sometimes we need to look at that. I mean, I know I've been a great mom. I've been the best mom for my boys, but yet still I need to step back a little bit and say, okay, could he be right?
Of course.
Could it be right? Could he be right? What's wrong with saying, I'm sorry, baby, maybe because I was going through something in my life. I think that's important. What do you think?
I just think that as parents, my mother told me something, God bless her. She told me something that was really important. And I really began to understand who I was as a parent after she told me this. She said, all your children, you can have 10 kids. She had 3. She said that each child is different, and you have to treat them accordingly. You have more than one child. You're not going to treat each child the same, as much as we like to say that. I treat all my children the same. I treat them just the same. And what you can't, because if you are treating them just the same, you're making a mistake, because each child is different. Which child needs more attention, right? It's normally the child that you feel is more vulnerable than the other ones. You don't take it to the extreme. I mean, you don't say, okay, well, I got to coddle this child. It's not so much as coddling them, but it's looking out for them a little bit more. Where's such and such? Why didn't you call me? You don't really ask the other ones that, because wherever they were taking care of business and whatever they were doing. I treat my children differently because they're different. Megan is different than Nathaniel. There's a 10-year age gap there too. So
it's 10 years.
It's 10 years. Perfect example. And I hope everyone understands this. If I were to get on the phone right now and tell Nate, I need you to come here, right? First of all, he'd ask me, what's going on? Is everything all right? Then he'll say, never mind, and he'll get in the car and he'll come right away. If I call my daughter, right, who's one of the most responsible people in the world, if she's in the middle of doing something, I'll be there as soon as I can, Dad. You
He'll
know,
come back to the next day.
Nate will
No,
drop
joke.
everything because Nate is very my son is very I don't want to, he's not
He's always concerned.
Yeah,
huh?
concerned. I was gonna say emotional, but it's not the case. He's always concerned differently. And yes, I agree 110%. You do parent sometimes because of the environment that you was brought up in.
Mm-hmm.
I love you to death, but we come from two different backgrounds.
Yep.
And just to tell, I never really, I don't think I ever really spoke on the show about my background. My background was this: as a Black American, I was never told, I was never given by my mother and father the idea, right, that I was somehow at a disadvantage because of who I was as a Black American. You understand? Where I've seen in some households like, oh, you know, they're going to try to keep you down. The white man is going to try to keep you down. White people don't love you, so you're going to be limited what you can do. Never heard that speech in my life
How was it
from
for
my
you?
parents. And I'm a child of the 60s.
Exactly. How was it growing up during those times for you?
See, but I saw a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't experience, my mother and father did. And I heard them talking amongst one another. And sometimes they would talk to us about it. But it was never something that they told me I was ever at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw them interact with different cultures.
Did mommy ever say to you not to go out? Because
no, never.
You know, because there were so many of us, you know, especially the African American being hurt, you know, like, because during that time, that era when we were growing up, still there was a lot of prejudice.
A lot of prejudice, still a lot of prejudice now. It's
No,
just not
but
as
I'm
prominent as it was back then.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. You know.
I think. See, I'm from New York.
Okay, so am I.
I'm from New York, so New York has always been a place where you had to deal with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's a melting pot of cultures.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just say this one time. Need to make people understand this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is only one race. So whoever made up this nonsense about different races, right? I have ancestry that goes back to Africa, right? And again, I say this to my wife all the time. I have no connection with Africa whatsoever, other than the music and the culture and my DNA, right? She has African culture in her also, amongst Spaniard and whatnot. I have probably European blood in me too. Apparently, if you look at me, you know, you wouldn't say, well, God, this is an African guy. You know, it's different. We have one race of people though. It's just humans. We have different nationalities, meaning you come from a different region on the planet Earth. On the planet Earth, we are one species. We are Homo sapien. We are human. All of our organs are the same. We are just one species of people. So I think it's a disnomer when people say there's something as stupid as dating outside of your race. So that dating outside of your race means you're dating an alien from Mars. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, I was never instructed by anybody to tell me that I could not do something because of what nationality I was. And I think that we do our kids, speaking of how we hurt our kids, it's when we talk about you're not going to be able to do something. It's going to be hard for you. You're putting your kid at a disadvantage right there by telling them how hard it's going to be, as opposed to saying, you can do anything that you put your mind to and really want to do.
Yeah, but growing
as
up,
a parent, and you're talking about parenting, I think that's the way you should raise your children. I don't give what nationality you are. You tell your kids you do anything you want to. Just keep your eyes on the prize.
Every generation, I truly believe that, you know, children wants to be better than the old generation. I know I wanted to be better than my old generation, you know, like my parents. So it's so hard sometimes to talk about pain, because we as parents, we don't want to talk about our pain. We just want to keep that hush hush, you know. And of course, there's certain things that you keep to yourself, and there's certain secrets that you keep. But guess what? The next generation will find out. And what I'm trying to say is this: that back in the '60s when I was growing up, it was a very difficult time for me because I remember when I came to Puerto Rico from Puerto Rico in 1968, and we moved to Alphabet City. Um, when I went to school, there was a school in Alphabet City that I loved so much, and I think it was a Catholic school. They put me in this little I remember a little tight room, and there was a sister there. And I will never ever, it's amazing how when you're a child, you never forget your favorite teacher,
Mhm.
your best teacher. This teacher was my survival teacher, and there's a reason why I say that. Her name used to be Sister Eleanor. That was her name.
Mhm.
And Sister Eleanor was very kind to me. She was so sweet, such a sweet lady. And I didn't know English. But because of the way she treated me and the way she just a sweet, I was blessed by this woman,
Mhm.
and Sister Eleanor, she was so loving that I remember one time my mother came in a rainy day and just grabbed me, and we walked down the streets of East Harlem. I remember that,
Mhm.
walking towards a housing project,
Mhm.
and without any no communication. My mother never communicated to me. My mother never said to me that we were leaving this place where we
Mhm.
were living at in Lower Manhattan in Alphabet City
Mhm.
to go move to a better place,
Mhm.
cheaper place, which was a housing project.
Mhm.
And so she just never communicated to me because my mother only spoke in Spanish. And I remember, I just want to get to the point. I remember going to the school there because the school was right across the street from where we were living at. And I couldn't understand from the bottom of my heart how these kids would bully me, pull my hair. They would tease me because the language that I was speaking,
Mhm.
which was Spanish, Espanol, you know, and that's all I knew as a child because my mother and my father came from Puerto Rico to come live in Manhattan, and I had to endure all this stuff. And I cannot imagine. I was just a child. I was just a baby. I was wondering what happened, like why isn't, why am I here in
Mhm.
this huge world? I cannot imagine, a child to undergo those trials, because
Mhm.
I was traumatized when I was a little baby, and I'm talking about, because I grew up with domestic violence, and it's just amazing how you can take a child, put a child in a situation and not even realizing and knowing that the way you behave or the way you speak or certain actions that you do can affect a child
Mhm.
eternally through life. You know what I'm saying? Here I am, you know,
Right.
and I'm talking about this. It is so important how we introduce certain things to our kids.
It
I
it
don't
it
know if I
is.
make any sense.
No, it is.
Just
The thing is
parenting is so important.
what do you, because it was hard growing up in the '60s for me too. We didn't have a lot of stuff, and
You remember those
we
bandit buildings?
yeah,
I
of course,
remember those.
in the Bronx,
Yeah,
of
and
course,
even in Manhattan back in the '70s, how
yeah,
the
in
we
Harlem,
had it was like that was the only project that was new,
yeah,
that built new building back in I think it
'70s.
was 1974, 75 that
Hmm.
this housing project was built. And I'm talking
Hmm.
about East Harlem. And
Hmm.
I remember our surroundings. All I remember was the bridge, the park, and
Hmm.
also across the street there was nothing. It was just a junkyard.
Yeah, just empty lot.
An empty lot.
The thing with me is that it as a parent and growing up in the environment that I did, like I said, we didn't have a lot. We struggled a lot. If you have parents who don't emphasize that, if you or there's two things that can happen. A parent can traumatize a child and their children by letting them know constantly, we ain't got that. We broke. We don't. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna get through this? And if that conversation is going on between mother and father, and then pass it along to their child is going to always be in that mode. I don't care what anyone says. because if it's, if it's save me mode or my God mode and whatnot, and if you don't have some kind of positive, input coming into the family, that's what it's always going to be. And a child is going to grow up to be that way, and they're going to pass that on to their kids.
Yeah, but
oh my God, what are we going to do? I am in such bad, we're in such dire straits.
Yeah, but I want to get really deep, because there's certain things that I grew up knowing, that it can affect. It affected me a lot. The way, certain family patterns. How family, back then. I remember with my dad, they loved him so much. I mean, like, they literally loved my dad. And don't get me wrong, I love my dad, but it was just so it was confusing, because we had certain family members who weren't talking to each other, and how important it is that we communicate and we stay, no matter what we go through, we should be able to talk and communicate, until this very day, it still trickles down how one family member is not talking to one family member. And even it's just so amazing how we don't talk about those things, that nobody wants to talk about that. And I want to talk about it, because it's so important how we, as mature people and parents that we are, that when something does happen, like, let's say, for example, what's going on now in the world, you have people dying, and why can't people just get along and love each other, and
because
especially,
I think it's human nature
and
that people have conflict.
and especially when I came to Manhattan, I went to this school. All my life, I asked myself, why are we hating one another? We're the same, like the same people, like, why?
Let me ask
I
you a
don't
question.
understand
If
the
you,
concept of why it goes to a situation where it's still gonna,
because
parents gotta understand what we do and say. Our children is watching.
yes, and let me ask you, and I was going to ask you something in that same vein. My mother. She never talked negative about
Yeah, she
anything,
was a
about
sweet
about
lady.
her life or
Rest in
whatever,
peace. She was a
right?
very sweet lady.
If you constantly, if you, a parent, whatever, constantly talk about the hard times that you had, the fact that you're not talking to someone, you're not close to someone, if you're constantly saying that to your children, how do you think your children are taking this in? What? And my question to you is, what do you think the cause and effect is, that from the time your children can understand what you were saying, if you're saying the same thing that you're saying now to me, right? If you're constantly bringing that back up time after time after time again, what do you think that's doing to your kids now?
It's gonna.
They make them believe this is the way it is. If there is no ray of sunshine, if there is no, as corny as that may sound, if there is nothing other than saying about how miserable, how confusing, how messed up, your childhood is, right? And you're constantly telling this to your children, don't you think they think that's the way the world is?
I think that when we talk about certain things, and we tell, for example, we tell our kids, I don't want you talking to your aunt, or I don't want you talking to your uncle.
Right.
Or let's say our kids get involved with another family, right? Who has the same pattern, and you try to avoid this, but it's just like, have you not noticed that there's some families who carry those same patterns? And I look at the parents. I don't look at the young adults. I look at the parents. What are those parents doing that's trickling down to the next generation?
Right.
Because it's going to trickle down to the grandchildren. And so what I'm trying to get at is this, that if we don't look at those certain things and talk about those certain things, and make ourselves look at it and say, hey, I gotta fix this. I gotta figure out how in the world can I stop doing this? And I'm talking about the no communication and keeping things to yourself, because what's happening is your behavior, whether you observe it or not, it's showing to your kids. It's what I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
No, you are. I had my father did not have a good upbringing. No, we had paused it for a minute.
Okay.
My father did not have a good upbringing, right? I know about it because I heard him talk about it from time to time, right? Regardless of what he said about his upbringing, there was always something that he passed on to me, my brother, and my sister, and that's take care of one another, because he was a good man. He made sure that no matter what he had gone through, he made sure that his life, before it ended at 40 years old, that he put in time with his children and said, no matter what I went through, I was not going to bring that to my children. Love one another. Take care, me and my brother, take care of your mother and sister. Always be there for one another.
Now that's
right. I don't know, and I don't hang on to the things that he told me about his upbringing. What it does for me, as opposed to bringing it to my life, right? What it does for me is have some kind of bad feeling about the people that treated him bad, because he was such a good man. And I could never understand how you could treat somebody who was a good man so badly, right? That's it. I didn't think that somehow or another, my father's bad upbringing had any effect on me, because it didn't, because he would not allow it to.
Because
so that's what I'm saying.
And what he did was he stopped that pattern.
He completely stopped it.
Now, it is funny because we both come from a different world. Now, think about what you said, compare to every woman you have met in your life, their childhood, right? What I'm trying to say is there are good families, like your family, because your family is so different compared to other people's family, you know? And so when you look at that, and especially what I'm trying to say is the people that you know, all the females that you know, and it's funny because majority of all these women were Latinos, right? Okay. And you knew about their upbringing, their relationship with their fathers or their mothers, right? It's the same situation with me, right? Now, isn't it weird how that generation of people, you know, have the same pattern? And you look at different families, they got the same pattern, and somehow it just doesn't stop. And I say this because we need to look at ourselves and we need to say, okay, enough is enough. Let's try and change this up. Because so far from what I understand, still to this very day, 2022 now, it's still going on. And I truly believe, because I'm going to be that parent to say, you know what? I need to study my childhood, because I need to look at how my parents treated me, because I don't want to be like that. I want to be different. And so I have to, your dad stopped that pattern, is what I'm saying. And then you have other people who been through so much in their life. Growing up was the worst. People don't want to talk about it, but I do talk about mine, because I want to make sure that I can study it and say to myself, okay, I need to understand why am I behaving this way, because it's going to trickle down to my kids, because the way I was in my childhood is going to affect still my relationship with my kid, because it's the way I was brought up. And so what I'm trying to say is sometimes because I went to, you know, and I put it out there, I went through therapy, you know, when I was young. I went to a lot of therapy. And then I went to therapy during my first marriage. And I needed therapy because I was traumatized as a child. So again, people don't talk about that. I'm going to bring it up. So here I am. And I'm so thankful that the only way I was able to maneuver and compose myself and really relax and be different, it was learning from other people. You know, I went to a lot of programs and I went through a lot of workshops. and I went through the shelter, and I'm an advocate against domestic violence, and I love that. I love just listening and hearing these people, because then I say to myself, oh, wow, my situation is nothing. But I learned, and that was my therapy, being able to be there with these women in the shelter, because that's what helped me. That gave me more motivation, and these women, I was able to be right with all of them. That helped me a lot than just sitting down talking to someone on that one-to-one thing. And the relationship with these women at the shelter helped me a lot. So what I'm trying to say is that, sometimes we need to just take a step back and look at what's happening among our friends, among our family, and really understand that the way we behave, we have to be careful, because it's going to affect our children.
And my biggest thing, and that's 100% true, my biggest thing that I always emphasize to the kids is this: no matter what I went through, it doesn't determine what you're going to go through. The trials and tribulations that I went through as a young kid, being born in the 1960s and growing up in the 70s and stuff, it's not even possible for my kids to go through the same thing. I give them snippets of what I went through, and I say, well, hey, you can't do this, don't do this, don't do this, right? But I never harp on it. I never linger on it. I never say, this is how my life is. My God, if you're not careful, your life will be the same. Because we as parents, we protect our children from going through the same thing. If you're a good parent, it doesn't matter. Because at this point, at 60 years old, right? And me getting this far in life, right? How far I've gotten, what I've achieved, right? Does it really matter what I went through as a kid? Does it matter? Does it matter at this point at my age? Does it really matter? It does not matter, right? It didn't, it molded me into the person that I am. I can't speak on what anybody else goes through, because they have to deal with their life the way they do it. But me as a person, I can't use the disadvantages that I had growing up as an excuse, right? To not do well, to not love, to not be a good person, a whole person and whatnot. I just can't, it's just a whole nother world to me to hear somebody that still their childhood and stuff, even you sometimes, it's almost debilitating.
What do you mean, even me?
As far as talking about how you grew up and the things that you went through and whatnot, because every time I hear it, right? And I think every time everybody hears it, right? They're saying to themselves that they love you. If they don't love you, they really don't care, right? But those who love you realize it still affects your life. It still affects you and whatnot. And so we see that how it affects you, we look at it and go, I want you to get beyond it, to get either anyway. I don't have I think talking to, because I've talked to a therapist more than once, right? About everything, because as you say, you bottle stuff up, you hold it inside and whatnot. I had issues with my father dying when I was 13 that I kept inside of me. I had problems with the divorce after being married to somebody for 20 years. I had a problem with that, but I'm known as a strong person, right? I'm gonna tell you guys a secret, which is really weird. I never told anybody this. I went to a therapist one time, and he asked the question, and I can't remember what the question was, right? I started bawling like a baby. It was an ordinary question. It wasn't how you doing, but it was like, why are you here? I started crying like a baby for about 5-6 minutes, and I couldn't control, like that crying where you're basically even, because I had so much inside of me that I needed to get out, that I needed to release in order for me to progress in my life, to be a good father, to eventually meet you and be a good husband. I had to get that stuff out, you know. At the end of the day, you can ask me anything now, I will not cry. Only thing that I will cry is that about the death of my mother.
Mm-hmm. Rest in peace.
You know, and that's it. You have to get to the point where it's not, it's a side note as opposed to prominent
I
in
think
your
that
life.
is more, when I talk about these things, it's because these things are still occurring, and also because of the things that I hear, you know, and also how the kids are saying certain things to me, because again, when a parent is moving on, and also, we're all adults now, and sometimes with my situation is I have to be able to fix it. And that's why I talk about it, because I want to fix it.
That's what I just said.
And I want to be able to help our children to understand why these things are occurring in their life.
Right.
Because they can get involved in a relationship, okay, that maybe they're not aware of, because they're not doing their homework as far as asking questions. Because when my boys get involved with women in their life, they come to me and they tell me, Mom, she went through this and she went through that. Now, when I hear stories like that, then it worries me as a mother, because I have my boys. I know what you're about to say. I have my boys, and I want to make sure that my boys ask questions. It's not about beauty. It's not about the booty, because there's too much of that going around, looking at the
it's always been that
looking
way,
at the
it's always been.
Yes, I understand, but now as a mature woman that I am, I know certain things. You become wiser. I'm a very wise person now, and there's certain things that
it's funny that you said that with such conviction.
Because I'm very wise. Because once you become in your 60s, you become very wise. Because
you're not in your 60s yet.
There's so many things that I've learned, and so let me finish. That I want to tell my boys: when you get involved with somebody, find out their relationship with their family.
Right.
That's what I'm going to say.
Well, definitely. And that's what you do when you get to know somebody.
So when I hear something about that family, I start talking, because this is so important. We need to tell them, hey, tell them the positive and the negative.
Right.
Let me put it like that.
There's going to be 2 shows, by the way.
So, that's very important.
Question
how we
for
communicate, how we treat our kids. I
Just,
don't care how old they are. If they're 40, they're still your child.
Right. This is funny. Conversation I had with May. Right?
Yes.
With May. And
just make sure May is your daughter. Our daughter.
Right. The thing is this, Megan, right? The thing is this. I told her this, and it's a conversation we were having about her relationship with her boyfriend. Right? Guy comes from a very good family.
Don't shake the table, because it's moving on.
I'm sorry. Guy comes from a very good family, very close family. Just like Megan has a very close family. We're a very close family.
Yeah, we are. We're very tight.
But
we can argue and still love each other.
But because of our upbringing, because we were brought up in a time of not having, right?
Not having what?
Not having material stuff. And
what
happened, right? I didn't either. I just had the love of my family, my mother and father. Yes, I know that. And my thing is, even if you come from a loving family, a loving mother and father, I told Megan, we brought you up in a different way. I love my daughter. I kiss, hug. You know me, I'm a kisser, I'm a hugger, I'm very affectionate, right? But I'm not a coddler, You understand what I'm saying? Because of how I was brought up, right? I was hugged, kissed by this huge man, and my mother, my father, this big guy hugging and kissing you, right?
I had to learn those.
People think that they're, that's weird, right? But anyway, I'm not a coddler. I will not tell you you didn't do something stupid when I know you did something stupid. I will not confront you when I know that you know better than to do something dumb. I will not allow you as a young adult to get away with anything that I know you're capable of doing.
Mhm.
And that's the difference with some parenting. Some parents coddle their child. They go, it's okay, darling. Where we go, get up off your ass and do it now, right? Because you have the talent. We see the potential in our children, and it bothers us if they do not fulfill that potential. We don't beat them in the head with it, but we'll say, well, what are you doing? You know you can do this, right? And I think that approach, for me, that approach is so much better. Is don't worry about it. It's all going to be okay. Because kids grow up to think, I can half step through my life. You know why? Because my mom and dad said it's going to be okay. And I've made it this far. See, our parents didn't tell us it was going to be okay. They say, you got to go out here and make your own way.
That was your parent.
Yeah, well, my parents said, you have to make your own way. I will be there every step of the way until I am no longer here, but you have to find your way. Tell you something very special about my mom, right? She told me, best advice in the world, right? Don't worry about me. Take care of your wife and take care of your children. You know I'm going to be okay because I always have been. You can't take care of me, Nate. I took care of you. Now go take care of make me proud by taking care of your children and your family, right? If you can tell your kids that, if you're not that parent, right, that expects something from you, well, hell, I worked and I did. Best line in the world from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Everybody look that up and just Google it or YouTube it. It says, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Conversation between father and son.
That was
Sidney Poitier.
Poitier.
Most important thing whoever wrote that said. When Sidney Poitier looked at his father and said, I don't owe you anything. If you had to carry a mail bag for 1,000,000 years, that was your job. Let me live.
And that was the relationship between him and his father.
His father. Because his father said, you owe me. Our children don't owe us anything. They didn't ask to be here. We made a choice to have children.
Well, I know when I'm with my kids and I have my boys, just joking.
Yeah. I was going to say, no, you don't.
They owe me a lot. I carried them for 9 months, okay? All 3 of them.
But
and
your kids,
you know what? Let me start charging them how much Pampers and food I fed them.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, right? Because they're our kids, right? They know that. We don't have to tell them, you owe me. They will break their necks. Your sons will break their necks for you. You already know.
I love my baby.
They will break and that's because, for me, that is the perfect example of being a good parent. When your child hits that age and they start worrying about you.
They don't worry about me.
They do. No, they worry about you all the time.
They're too busy, I mean, thank you, God, because this pandemic is wow. I try to tell them every day, please don't go clubbing. Don't go to those.
But they still worry. Besides that, they're gonna be kids. They're gonna be young men.
Fine. I mean, they're all adults, But I'm happy that, they, especially I think it's Andrew, my oldest. He's a musician, and
He's DJ.
He DJs at clubs, and I'm always every day telling him, please wear your mask.
He can't DJ.
Wear your mask.
And he's away from people. I tell you what, I tell you how funny our kids are. My son, the second oldest, right? I told him that we want to do something. We want to move to, what's the name? And
don't put it out there.
No, I just said it.
We'll stay here,
right? And at this point, I think the 2 youngest came in to stay with us for a while, and Nate was at the point where, Nathaniel was at the point where he looked at me and said, you know what, at the end of the day, Dad, do what you got to do. Y'all need to live your life. Y'all raised this already. When your kid tells you that, when any of your children say, live your life, mom and dad,
Yeah,
right? You can actually sit back. Andrew says it all the time.
Yeah.
You can, and they actually get mad at anybody that asks us for anything, because if they find out, they get pissed
but
off.
when they find out we're away in some tropical island, they're like, oh,
no,
what you doing over there?
But the two oldest have this recognition of knowing that, as we do as children, we know that our parents are getting older, right?
Yeah.
And once they figure that out, they say they want to see us happy, right? All over there, right? They want to see us happy, and the two oldest will always tell us, go live your life. Yes. We're grown. We'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. That's when you know that you've parented to the ninth degree, and you've done a good job as a parent. When your child can look at you and say, I love you, live your life. Mm-hmm. We'll be fine.
Yeah. And it's so important that we encourage our kids to, I try my very best. I tell them, just learn about God, and trust in God. Mm-hmm. And, not, I'm more, how can I say, I'm more religious.
And I'm spiritual.
And my husband is spiritual. I have faith, and I love my God, and and it's sometimes it's hard to try to just conversate, and I'll just say me, with the boys, and just to help them to be able, because I truly believe that we as parents, we need to teach our kids about God and how important it is to pray, because there's so many things happening in this world that if we don't help them to understand that there's a higher supreme, and we don't do that,
what do you think happens? What do you think? I'm sorry to cut you off a bit, but what do you think happens when you don't believe there's something greater than you? What do you think happens to a person when you don't believe that there's, because I believe there's a God. I believe in my God. Mm-hmm. And knowing that there's something greater than me keeps me humble.
Yes.
It keeps me centered. It keeps me grounded. Mm-hmm.
I try to help them to there's hope, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There is hope, mm-hmm. And as parents, we need to from infancy, from childhood, mm-hmm. my kids, they know about, Jehovah. They know Jehovah God. So, and I try to talk to them, because mm-hmm. right now they're all adults, and right. And I love, even though they're, they're all close by, but mm-hmm. they live in other states, but I love writing letters, mm-hmm. And what's wrong writing letters? Do we do that? Do we continue doing these personal letter writing?
Because writing a letter is really
it's personal. Very personal, very and they personal. Love that. And mm-hmm. and I try to we have our little Bible studies, we do our mm-hmm. I do my research, and I enjoy helping my husband, to understand certain things, and I may not understand it, but as long as I'm putting the effort, then I think that's important, to mm-hmm. be able to embody that, because mm-hmm. The things that are going around right now, it's so important that we stay calm and we stay focused, especially when it comes to family. We need to be able to support each other, love each other, call each other up, and forget about whatever negative stuff that's out there or in the family, and fix it, mm-hmm. and be able to understand that we just want the best for everybody.
And if you can't fix it,
we're going over this a lot.
Move on. It's too short. If you can't fix it, you move on.
Yeah, just move on and wish them well, and just move on,
And my thing is, there's always going to be people that you have to leave behind for self-help.
Yeah.
But there are certain people
who just forgotten about certain things, and they've moved on.
Then you have to do the same, because if you and I, mm-hmm. if our children, when they come into these situations where people are not adhering to what toxicity,
it's like sad,
it's you got to get away from that.
I tell them, even in your own family, I tell them, stop talking to these individuals,
Mhm.
especially when they speak bad of mothers and grandmothers and about they speak negative stuff among each other.
Mhm.
And if they're not communicating with that person, why would you listen to them? Like leave it alone and just move forward, wish them well,
Mhm.
enough with the negative,
And move
and
on.
just move on. Move
What
on.
what
What's
is the
wrong with that?
simplest way you can
Keep
put
things
that?
positive,
What is the simplest way I can put this and to put it into an example? I smoke, right? None of my kids smoke. None of them.
And I wear my mask when he smokes.
Right? No, she doesn't. I never smoke around her.
No, you never do.
Right?
Not even
We
in the
we
home.
have
In the
5.
home.
That's right. We have 5 children.
None of them smoke.
And they know I smoke.
Unless they do
So
something behind my back that I'm
right.
not
No, they
aware
don't
of.
smoke cigarettes. And what? If you're a smoker, if you drink a little bit, I don't drink. I hate alcohol, right? My father drank a lot, and I learned something from him. He drink, he look at us, don't you ever do this.
Yeah.
Don't you ever do this. Don't you ever do this. I've told the kids don't be smoke. This is crazy and whatnot. You're a parent when you do that. If you go out and if you go out, I've never gone drinking with the kids because I don't drink. With the boys. I've never gone out drinking with them.
I went one day. You know what? It's funny.
Yeah, but you got the wine thing and all that.
No, I love my wine.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about going clubbing with the kids.
No,
I did that once. I didn't like it. I was like, I don't want to be here.
Can you imagine?
I just sat in the corner because it was a special day because I think it was an opening for my son for his first DJ some kind of club, and I just that was like what?
If I had been there, we would have stayed there for an hour.
Was that?
It was probably about 4 years ago.
No, it had to be. It had to be before we moved here.
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
That was a long time ago. Oh my goodness.
Because you came from Virginia, you came up. I remember
we were living. That was back in 2000.
You called me.
2006.
You called me from the club.
No, 2017. I think it was.
Folks, this was the funniest thing, right? And it's true. I could never go clubbing anymore. We've clubbed out since the late 70s, early 80s, right? And clubs aren't the same no more, right? I got a call we're living in Virginia. I got a call from Belle, and I can't hear her, first of all, right? So loud. She says, I'll call you right back. Hold on. This is like 11 o'clock in the evening, right? She goes outside and calls me. Babe, these nasty girls are dancing on the table. They're dancing. And I'm cracking up because
oh my God.
I never thought that me and her would get to this point. You never think that you're getting older, right?
No, but I was with the boys.
No, hold up a second. You never think that you're going to get older and be your parent,
in a
right?
VIP section. So
she's looking at stuff that we would have looked at 20 years ago, and we may have jumped on the table and start dancing too, right? But now you're looking at it at 40, late 40s, early 50s, and going, this is crazy. They're dancing on they're dancing on the table. Yeah. I want to go home.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. That's because I'm older and more mature.
Right.
But, I mean, I used to go clubbing a lot when I was young. And
yeah,
there's certain things that I did. Well, guess what? I got flaws. Everybody got flaws too. But you learn from it and then you move on,
You grow up, hopefully.
And shame on those who's pointing fingers at me because you got 3 pointing back at you.
So. No one's saying anything to you. Wow, you got really
I'm getting deep in here because
you got defensive, right? What I never want to be is that old guy standing in the back of a club.
Oh,
I never wanted to be that. When I was going out, when I was young in my 20s, you go into a club, right? You with your boys or whatever, right? You with your girlfriend or whatever.
They weren't getting attention at home.
And you look at these gray-haired guys that's in these clubs and whatnot, and you laugh at them. We would die on old, especially God forbid if we knew them, right? What are you doing here?
I think it happened to Nate.
It happened to Nate.
His uncle, he was at a club. Oh my goodness.
My brother-in-law was at a club, bless his heart. He was at a club because he knew the guy who was giving the thing, he knew the guy who owned the place. So he decided to stop by after he was working. He had taken a visit back from Richmond. And my son just happened to be with his friends in the thing, and Lord have mercy.
Walked into a club and saw his uncle.
I'm very sure that my brother-in-law was like, oh God, of all the people, because my son can be the biggest nut and laugh and joke about everything. So
he's
he
funny.
wrote his uncle for at least a couple of years about that and whatnot. But anyway, we hope that everybody's okay.
Wow, we went over time here.
We're going to split this show up into another two shows.
Maybe three.
Maybe three. I don't know. Whatever my boss decides to do it. We hope this gives you some insight. I mean, I pray that it gives you some insight about, if you're in a relationship with someone, if you're married to them.
Here we go.
Right? And you come from different things.
Different households.
Yeah, different households. But the similarities between me and her growing up, we say things that growing up in Harlem, the Bronx, and stuff. We say, "Oh, you used to do that too." Yeah, we used to do that. We're connected, but our household was different. I couldn't love this woman more than I love her. It doesn't matter that she grew up in a different household than I did, because I love her with everything that I have. And I feel for her. I have empathy for my wife. So if you're in a relationship and you don't come from the same thing and you don't come from the same type of household and whatnot, that's not something you should break up about or worry about and whatnot. Just love the person that you're with.
Yeah, and it's funny because I truly believe that as married couples, we intend to point fingers at each other. And I learned that it's so important to just be kind to one another. If you love each other, then love blossoms in a marriage.
Yeah.
And you don't point fingers at each other, because we need to look at each other. I look at myself. And sometimes when I have these attitudes or I'm upset about something, I always look at my husband and I say, it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about me. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I want to do. This is a passion that I'm working on, And so I truly believe that in every marriage, we need to do that. We need to look at ourselves and see, what do we need to do to satisfy ourselves?
And how great is it that you can look at me and I can look at you and you can tell somebody, I don't want this person to think that I am mad at them. I am angry at them. I'm going to take the time out of my whatever I'm going through right now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take the time to look at that person that I love and say, this ain't about you. Mm-hmm. This is not about you. Please do not take this as me. I'm just going through something. And as a person receiving that, if you have the mental wherewithal to go, okay, I'm going to leave that person alone. Guys, we can't fix anything. Mm-hmm. We can't. We can fix a sink, a pipe or something. We can't fix an individual. We can't fix our wives as much as we love them and we want to be that person. Mm-hmm. We can't fix them. They have to find their own way. And I learned that early on. I can't fix anybody. I can only love them. And that's it. And hope that that's enough. So when someone is having a bad day and they tell you it ain't about you, let it be not about you. Go find a book, go watch some football, basketball, whatever you like to do, whatever your passion is. And get back to that person a little bit later and say, how you doing, baby?
Yeah, and it's a blessing when you have a good relationship like that. You have a good mate.
Yeah.
You got someone that you can trust, and someone that you don't have to worry about, because I'm a type of person that I love myself. Mm-hmm. I love my husband. I trust my husband now. I trust him since God, I just trust him.
God knows when.
He's just a good guy. He loves his parents. Sometimes there was a situation where, in the beginning of the marriage, we went through a lot of stuff. That was because I was, I wasn't thinking, and we go through certain things because we still yet having no idea of, I had no idea what was his dislikes or what he liked. There's things that we both had to learn from each other, and I love the fact that I have a great relationship with his ex-wife, and I love the fact that my husband had a good relationship with my rest in peace, my ex-husband, and there's things that I've spoke about, that you had to learn about how I felt about certain other things,
Of course.
and we learn from each other, and it's
Of course.
important, now we're living in a time where we should, we can reach out to our friends, reach out to old friends and say, hey, are you okay?
Of course.
Is everything all right? Maybe we can help them,
How do you
and
do
that's
that?
so important.
And how do you do that unless you
And those who
have
don't want to reach out, okay,
that's
fine,
fine.
God bless you.
But how do you do that? Because like you said something that's really important that I need everybody to understand. I have confidence in me.
Mhm,
I know that no matter what happens, I'm always going to be me,
mhm,
And if I'm me and I love somebody, I'm always going to love them,
mhm. And you never
And I'm
stop
not
someone.
scared
You never stop
of
someone
anything.
from being humble and
Yeah.
kind, and
Mhm.
just being able to say, well, I haven't heard from this friend, and I
Mhm.
hope and pray that he's okay, she's
Of
okay.
course.
And it's fine if they don't reach out to you.
But what
you know?
happens though? What happens, and we're really going over, what happens when you have somebody that
Mhm,
and that the person, well, somebody has a friend that they used to know,
mhm. Or even
and you
or
find
your
out,
ex, like
right,
your
or
ex-girlfriend.
you
So
or
what?
you find out. I've heard so many people, especially guys,
Mhm,
right? Well, no, that's not true. That's a lie.
mhm,
Women and men
mhm,
will freak out,
mhm,
right? If you're talking to someone,
mhm.
right, that you knew, right?
Yeah, like it's get
And
personal, like who? Like your ex-girlfriend or something?
or ex-boyfriend,
Mhm,
right? If I get upset about that,
mhm.
right, I have no confidence in me.
Or confident with your mate.
And definitely no confidence too. If I go get irate,
I
look
mean,
at Facebook, oh my God,
we're old people now, honey.
right?
I mean,
Or like, oh my God, you've been reaching out to such and such and such and such. No, maybe they just came across you, said, hey, how you doing? And you have a conversation.
yeah.
That is the weirdest stuff in the world for me
I don't know.
at
It's
60
all
years
about.
old going, I can care less.
It's also, maybe it's about maybe their religion, or maybe
Insecurity.
no. I don't know about insecurity. I think it's more about showing respect for your other mate. But
How
again,
is that disrespectful though?
well, everybody's different,
You
Bobby.
speaking to a human being, another human being that you knew, even if you had a relationship with this person, you're speaking to another human being.
Yeah, well,
How
everybody's
does that
different.
how does that affect us? And at the end of the day, we control nothing.
Nope.
We control nothing. If that person decides to go, I want to go back to the past and relive my life and all this, right? Let me ask you a question. What exactly can you do to stop it anyway?
I mean, there's nothing
What are you
can
gonna
stop.
do? You're gonna lay as they're leaving the door. Don't leave. And they're dragging you out the house with them. What is that thing I always say? People say, he took my man.
No,
They took my woman.
they
What
went
happened?
on their own.
They left on their
It
own.
just,
No one can take anybody from you. People leave because they choose to.
yeah, it's different. But we're just, we want to keep things positive.
But it is positive though.
Yeah, it
Keep
is.
living.
It is. It's just keep living, and
Yeah,
just be happy. I just,
of
I
course.
just want everybody to be happy.
Close the show.
Like my host says.
What?
Wait, I've got it. It's like I always, honey,
Every time I tell
this
you
is
to
your
do it,
part. I
every
always
time
do
I
the
ask
camera
you,
part.
every time I ask
I
you
do
to
the
do it, you
camera
mess
part.
up. It's just a quick quote.
Every man makes plan.
No, man makes plan.
Man makes plan, and God smiles. Yes.
Yes,
That's your job. That's not my job. My job is just to help you
but
direct.
sometimes it's
And
funny.
if I write something, just
One day I'm gonna get behind the
do what I
camera.
write.
One day I'm gonna get behind the camera and film you.
No.
We can do that.
Yeah, that's definitely. I got stuff.
Guys,
I got cameras here. We can do that.
Guys, take care. Be well.
Yes.
And we hope this long thing was therapeutic for you. We hope it helped you in your relationship, in your life with your kids and with your spouse or mate. We hope it helped. And that's all we try to do. And please join us again on Spoken Voices.
Peace. Peace. That's what you say. Peace.
Peace.
Keep it calm and positive.